This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
From north, south, east, and west, North America, Japan, and back again, this is your home for modern-day wrestling. With the occasional trip back in time, it's Place to Be Nation's main event. Now let's head into Studio B with your host, Scott Criscolo, and the Godfather, Nate Milton.
Place to Be Nation! Welcome back to your home for everything modern-day wrestling, here, there, and everywhere. Place to Be Nation's main event. I'm your co-host, Scott Criscolo. We are at episode 110. And we got a fun one tonight because we're going to go off the rails just a scoosh. We will recap what happened Sunday, which was actually a pretty good show until the last, 7.5 minutes. But we will get into it. And we will get into the big show and everything about it. But we got some other stuff to talk about that happened this past weekend. But first, let me, of course, bring in my co-host. He is the co-host of the Kings of Sport, and he is here, there, and everywhere. He'll be joining us, myself and the PIC, next week for episode 500. And I think him and I could make it to 500. Unless we have that Bernie Mac movie where we lose 2 hits and have to go back to 498. I don't know. The Godfather, Nate Milton.
What is going on, brother? Yes, I'm glad you invoked the classic movie that is Mr. 300.
Oh, great movie.
Co-starring Michael Will Bond and Tony Kornheiser, which always brings a smile to my face when the PTI guys get some shine. But it's been a busy week for me, Scotty. I've had a job that I've recently applied for, so I'm just going to throw it out to the universe that I get the job. I've had, various podcasts, as you know, brother.
Yes.
I've had to get my passport ready to go to Saudi Arabia. And to top it all off, my son, my 23-year-old son, showed up on Raw Monday night, and I forgot that I had left him there, and then he interrupted Elias. So I got a lot going on right now, brother.
I can't see you making a guy creating a kid that tiny. So it's anyway. Brother Nate, always a pleasure. That haughty laugh you heard in the background.
What?
Is our guest this evening. Steve Willie, the conscience of Place to Be Nation, could not make it tonight. He's got some family obligations. We always think of you, Steve. So we are going to hold off on our next installment of the New Japan Classic match pick. We'll do that on our next show, episode 111. I have 2 matches in mind, both from the early 1990s and both very different. So go to the main event page on Facebook, and later this week or early next week, we will post those 2 matches, and we want you, the listener, to vote which one we'll talk about. Again, both early 90s. One, 2 legendary cruisers. The other 2 legendary big power guys. Sorry, Nate. Bob Sapp's not one of them. But it will be 2 awesome power guys.
Akibono.
Well, not that power. I didn't say that. I didn't say the power of Sizzler. But in any event, we will do the New Japan Classic match pick on our next show, episode 111. But anyway, we want this guy on because he had a very very fun and interesting weekend. Not only was he near his home jaunt Sunday night for Hell in a Cell at the old AT&T Center in San Antonio, but he was at a couple of other shows to fill out his awesome weekend. You've heard this guy's voice a myriad of times here on Main Event. Of course, he was the co-host of more shows than we could possibly shake a stick at. And it's always awesome to have him on. Good old Will from Texas. From Dallas, Texas, as Steve Austin used to say. Will, welcome back, brother.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Man, I'm glad to be back, man. I was so excited about this weekend. You know, I went to Mexico City, lived like a king for 2 days, and then I did Hell in the Cell. And Scott, I'm going to be honest with you, man. When I realized I was going to go to Hell in the Cell, you were the first person I contacted. Said, hey, man, let's do a reaction on the main event. So this should be fun.
I greatly appreciate it, sir. It is always good to talk to you. It's always good to have you on. I know it's been quite a long time, and you're getting your stuff back together, so it's good that you had a few moments to chat with us this evening. So welcome back to the show. Now, before we'll get into Hell in a Cell in the B block, but first off, Mexico in general. I've never been there. I have a friend who has an aunt and uncle who live in Ensenada, which is on the left coast. Tell us where you were. Before we get into the two wrestling shows, tell us where you went and kind of general observations of Mexico right now.
All right, so I went to Mexico City, and a good dear friend of mine, Hassan, said, hey, man, I want to go to the anniversary show. And I'm like, hey, good luck, man. Tell me how it is. Tell me how the show's going. He's like, no, you're going with me. I was like, man, come on. He's like, no, we're going. I was like, all right. So we, pulled some strings or whatever. And last thing I knew, man, I was flying to Mexico City, and I'm going to the anniversary show. And it was
wow.
And the reason he was so intent on going is because it was originally supposed to be L.A. Park, the old Parker from WCW, versus this guy named Rush, or Rush in Spanish. And he is by far the hottest heel, or rudo, in the business today. Like, just so hot, just like so charismatic, so just when he's wrestling, man, you're just paying attention. So I was like, man, I'm all in. And then sure enough, CMLL decided, no, we're not going to give you that main event. We're going to give you another main event instead. But it was like, hey, we already got the tickets. We're going to Mexico one way or another. So. And so we went to Mexico City, man, and I loved it. I love that city. It's my new favorite city in the world. So, sorry, JT. Providence used to be my favorite city because of what's that great wings place? No, that too, man. What was that wings? Boneheads, man. That's still my favorite wing place, and because I was on TV.
That's right.
But besides that, no, Mexico City, man. One of these days, man, I'm going back to Mexico City, Scott. It's done. It's already in the books.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Nate, have you ever been to Mexico City?
Never Mexico City. I did spend a couple nights in my youth in TJ, in Tijuana, when I used to live out in San Diego. It was literally just a hop across the border. I've never been to Mexico City.
Nah, guys, all three of us, man, we're going to Mexico City one day, man. We're going to live like kings for like a day. Okay?
It's fantastic.
No, I'm serious. We have to go to Mexico City. Check this out, Scott. You'll appreciate this.
Uh-huh.
You might too, Nate. We're there for 15 minutes, okay? And we're in the Uber, and we're going from the airport to the hotel. And there's this huge protest, lines and lines of people, man, just stretching for miles. And, they have their bandanas over their faces and signs and chants. And I was like, oh, my God, these are my people, man. Like, I was telling the Uber driver, man, I want to get out and protest right now. Let's go, right? And my friend was scared shitless. He's like, no, we're not getting out. I'm like, come on, live.
I'd have kept you in the fucking car,
we'll throw some Molotov cocktails, and we'll riot and get, sprayed by some pepper spray by the police and pellets. And he was having none of it, man. And I'm a teacher by trade, man. And sure enough, like the Uber driver was like, he was talking like estudiantes, manifestación, profesores or whatever, right? And I was like, see, the students and the teachers are rising up together, right? And like, I was all about the revolution. And he's like, no, senor, no, senor. And then he said something. I was like, oh, so the students are protesting the teachers. And he's like, see. And I was like, oh, man, I'm a teacher, man. I'm not getting out of this car. Lock them doors, man.
Sounds like your bachelor party.
That was the first 15 minutes I was there, man. After that, I was hooked. I was sold on Mexico, man. And
that's funny.
Dude, I just had the greatest time, man. And then we went to the hotel, dropped our stuff off, went right to this Impact taping that they had at this little it's not an arena, but it's like a little convention center thing that they have there. And watched the Impact taping, enjoyed it, but did not love it. But then the next night, man, went to the famed Arena Mexico, had one of the greatest nights I've ever had watching wrestling.
Let's talk about the Impact taping first.
Sure.
Obviously, and you could more get into this, Nate. Impact's trying to do anything they can to be different. Obviously, they don't have WWE's bankroll, but they're trying some different things, and they probably have a bigger inroad in, say, Great Britain or in England than WWE does. So this was probably a pretty good attempt to try and kind of make some inroads somewhere else. As we know today, Rey Mysterio signed a 2-year deal with WWE, obviously for Legend stuff. He's not going to wrestle every day. Those days are over. But for Impact, this was probably not a bad idea. And I know they were now this was a house show, right? Will, not like a TV taping.
That's correct.
Okay, so just a house show, but I know, and I'm pretty sure they're doing tapings there too.
No, Scott, dude, I'm so tired right now. I apologize. It was a TV taping.
Okay.
It was an Impact taping.
Okay. How many
I
people?
had a brain fart right there, man. I feel like I just ruined the whole show.
No,
let's start all. Let's talk all about that.
Hey, we're live, pal. Now, how big was the place? How many people do you think were there?
I would say, I don't know, man, between 800 to 1,200.
Okay,
I think would sound good. I mean, I could be completely off, but man, I'm not a math teacher, so who knows? That
probably sounds about right, Nate? Like when they do tapings wide, probably about that crowd, right?
Yeah, if you compare that to what they did with the Rebel Center up in Toronto, I think the Rebel they had a bigger capacity, but it's roughly about that. And I think they've done a good job at kind of selecting venues that suited them. I don't know how full this taping was, but I think they're doing a good job of not trying to overreach their boundaries and not trying to be too big too fast.
Right. Now, my buddy Ricardo, who lives in Mexico, okay.
Did he go? Was he just kidnapped? Oh, there you are.
Can you hear?
Yes, now we can hear you. Continue, please.
Dude, on my end, it sounded like static and like an alien was invading.
Yeah, I thought the students were coming back to ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
Continue.
Man, I don't know, man. I was like, man, they really didn't want it. I don't know, like maybe TNA was like hacking us. They really didn't.
They don't have the money for that.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, continue. Go ahead.
They're not hiring it like anonymous or anything. Anyway, so like at that place, my buddy Ricardo, who was kind of like our tour guide in Mexico while we were there, he was telling us that they had only sold 200 tickets a week before the show. And so there were obviously more than 200 people there, but I mean, dude, it was not a sellout. There were tons of empty seats on the floor, and it was a 2-level arena type deal.
Okay.
And so like the second level was not packed, but I mean, enough people to make noise, to have fun, but by no means were they packing that place in.
Okay. Go ahead, Nate. I thought you have a question. I thought you would say something.
No, just to that point, I think that it'll be interesting to see how it comes across on TV. Because if there's one thing Impact has been good at, to their credit, over the years, it has been hiding the fact that nobody's at their shows.
That's a great point.
They've done a really good job. Like even when they're in the Impact Zone, and we know that place was never filled to capacity. They did a good job, whether it was with the lighting or the camera shots they picked. They did a good job of making it look like people were there, even if the place wasn't packed.
Right.
Except for Bound for Glory 2013, when they did the wide shot of San Diego, and they're like, "Look at this big house at the Viejas Arena," and there was like, I think there's more people on this podcast than there were in the building, and they did a terrible job of trying to hide that. I don't even think they knew how to hide it, but. Yeah, when it comes to TV, Nate, you're right. They do a pretty good job of kind of cobbling the people together. And one thing that I agree with you on that Impact does a good job with is their TV shows when they go to foreign places. Because I remember when I was watching and doing the write-ups for our blog in 2013, and they did the 1 month that they always do in England. The crowds are always hot, and the place looks great, and they do great different lighting, and they pump it up. And the only problem they do is that they're there too long. Like I think they did like 5 shows taped, and by the third show, the place is gassed. But I agree. I think they do kind of make their TV shows look good. Now, Will, what? Like, how did the place look? How did they set it up? Like, what were there? Did they have like the usual Impact ramp? Did they do something different? What did the place look like? Like the layout?
No, they had the stage and the ramp and all that. And I I think they had a ramp. Man, that was like a week ago, so it almost feels like an eternity. But and you got to remember, I went to like 2 of the best shows I've ever attended live after that, so my memory on Impact's a little vague. I'm just being honest with you. I'm serious. Like,
that's funny.
After that CMLL show in Hell in the Cell, it's like Impact 2, you know. But so if you were looking at the ramp or whatever, right? To your right, there were like no seats. There was like 1 row of people along the rail, right? And that was it. Then, like I said, if you're looking at the ramp, that next section, they had like maybe 6 or 8 rows, okay, of chairs on the floor. And then they had the announcers behind them. And that part of the section was by no means full at all. You know, lots of empty chairs. And then if you're looking at the stage to your left, I think that there were people on the floor, and then to your left was where the other section, that upper section was at, you know, where I was sitting. So only one side had like people rising, you know, up to the bleachers. Or whatever.
Right.
In terms of the atmosphere, what was it like there? Were people excited to be there, or did they get into the matches, or were they just kind of there to be there?
No, people were excited, man. My problem was, one, I was super tired, you know, hopping airports and flying all day. But the other, and then I had to drive to Dallas the night before from where I live, which is a 5-hour drive. And oh yeah, I forgot my passport. The one thing you shouldn't leave when you're going to Mexico. I was about 90 minutes on my way to Dallas, man. I had to drive 90 back to go get my passport, then go another 5 hours. So it was a huge hassle the night before, man. Like, I checked everything off. I'm like, okay, Starburst minis, wallet, you know what I mean? Pesos, man. I had everything except my passport. Anyway, it's all good. But so I was tired. But, man, they were enthused. And I did a podcast with a buddy of mine, Chris Harrington. He's a Mookie Ghana. He does the WrestleNomics podcast. He's the guy you go to when you analyze WWE business or wrestling business in general, and it does a great podcast. And I was explaining to him that this show, if you looked at the crowd, it would be the exact type of crowd in America that would attend an Impact taping. 95% male, you know, younger. They know the chants. They know the wrestlers, except they're all Mexican. You know, that's the difference. Like, and that's it. I mean, really, there were more like lucha masks in the crowd, because one thing Impact did do on this taping is they used a lot of local talent. You know, they featured a lot of Mexican wrestlers, luchadors. So, you know, like Pentagon and Phoenix were featured on the show as well, and they were stars, man. That they were already in town for the anniversary show. So. I don't know if they appear regularly on Impact.
Yeah, but they are. I would say for most of the year, at least the last 4 or 5 months, they have been a staple on Impact. And
awesome.
Pentagon at one point was the champion. He beat Austin Aries, and so yeah, I would say they've been a big part of the show.
Awesome. Yeah. So I mean, they were huge over. I mean, everybody honestly, they were over. Like LAX was over. I mean. But, man, I don't like that new LAX. I don't know, man. I want my old LAX back. That's just me. But
no, I like the old LAX, too. I agree. By the way, of course, the WrestleNomics podcast with Mookie Ghana, his co-host is our boy Brandon Howard. So
yes.
So we have him on as well. We got to get Mookie on. We got to get both those guys on. Great podcast, awesome, by the way.
I had a dinner with him when I was up in Minnesota this summer. So, you know, great guy. Great guy. Definitely. Can't say enough great things about him. Yep. But back to Mexico, it really was, man. It was a fun atmosphere. It just, you know, it was kind of one of those shows, like it's clearly the hors d'oeuvre, right? It's the appetizer to get you warmed up for that main event of Anniversary and Hell in the Cell. You know, it's a TV taping. Things are going quick. It's fun, but it's not life-changing, you know? And there was some good wrestling. And, man, my buddy Ricardo, who stayed for the entire show, he told us that, because me and my friend Hassan, we were super tired. My buddy Ricardo said that the best match was an Explosion 6-man lucha match, and we walked out on it, man. We were like, hey, man, you want to go? Like, yeah, okay, let's go. But we left the tape in early, and supposedly it was like the match of the weekend. So whatever, what can you do?
How many shows they do
so
now
look
for
for
a tape?
Explosion. I don't know if y'all watch Explosion. But
How many shows do they do now?
It lasted that long, man. Like, maybe, I'm guessing, I don't know, it's an hour-long tape. I'm going to guess that they did 2 impacts and an explosion. I don't know if they do 2 impacts at a time. It just felt like 2.5, 3-hour show. So
yeah, that sounds, because I know when they were in Toronto, I think they did 2 or 3 nights, and each night was either an impact and an explosion, or 2 impacts or 2 explosions. So they usually do about 2, maybe 3 episodes a night. The tapings I went to here in Norfolk a few years ago, that was a different regime, but they were still doing multiple tapings. We did 2 impacts in one night. So I'd say probably about 2 shows per evening, and then they usually do about 3 shows in whatever taping block they do. So that way they've got a month and a half of programs in the bank.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed the show. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't know any. But I didn't know any of the feuds. Like I recognized most of the wrestlers. Okay, except for except for the local lucha talent. Man, I didn't recognize most of those. But I don't know the storylines, man. I don't know who's feuding with who. I already told you, man. I was upset when I found out that LAX isn't the original LAX.
Well, the other thing is with those tapings,
Puerto Ricans left LAX.
Yeah, well, they tape them so far ahead of time that even if you were watching the shows week to week, what you saw down in Mexico is probably something that won't air for another month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they tape so far ahead.
Huh.
I think the Mexico shows, if I remember the ads correctly, I think the show that you attended, those will air either next week or the week after. But normally, like in Toronto, they taped a month and a half, 2 months worth of programming. So if you saw night 1 and you decided not to come back, then you don't know what the hell is going on, because they've done 4 weeks of programming in 2 days.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we only went to night 1 because night 2 was that anniversary show. We weren't missing that, man. Be honest with you, I'd be more interested to see how they did night 2 going up against that anniversary show.
Yeah.
How far away?
Like the WrestleMania of Mexico.
What's the distance between the 2 venues?
Man, I couldn't tell you, man. I don't read Spanish, so I don't know. Hey, they were both a 10-minute Uber ride away from our hotel, man.
I was like, could be that far, because Pentagon and I think maybe even Phoenix did both shows that night. They did the anniversary show and the Impact taping.
Oh, okay, yeah. But no, man. I mean, like where we stayed, man. Like we didn't venture out too far. Like I was so disappointed, man. My heart was broken. I'm in Mexico City. I got to go pay homage, man. I was going to go to El Santo's grave, right? But because it was a Friday, my friend was really worried that we weren't going to make it back in time because, like, there's so much traffic.
Right.
And that's one thing about Mexico City, man. That traffic is nuts. I have never encountered anything like that.
Wow.
It was, I mean, first of all, they're the craziest drivers I've ever seen in my life. Like, insane. Like, dude, if you put your nose up against the window, like, of the car, like, as the Uber driver's driving, you can, like, you're literally 2 or 3 inches away from the car next to you, man. Like, they give nobody any space, man. It was scary. And those guys are going, like, 40 miles an hour like that. Like, hey, slow down, man. Like, I want to get out of this car. But, man, there was just no fear in any of those guys, man. And people just walking around the street, with cars zooming by 30, 40 miles an hour, man, not even caring, man. It was the scariest thing I had ever encountered. I was telling Mookie Ghana, I was saying, man, I thought I was going to be mugged, kidnapped, joined in a drug cartel. I thought something was going to happen, and none of that happened. The scariest thing in Mexico, the drivers, no doubt.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying a lot of the same things I said on Chris's show, but they deserve to be said, man. Do not go to Mexico thinking you're going to rent a car and drive around.
Aren't the roads narrow, too?
We're not made for that. Roads were all right, man. I mean, I don't know, man. I love that whole culture, man. Like, man, I just love that city. Like, I just fell in love with it. Now, to be fair, man, I didn't go out to the favelas out in the outskirts, right? I wasn't out in the slums or anything. But, back to Santo's grave. So I wanted to go pay homage to Santo, but supposedly his grave was like 45 minutes away. And my friend was afraid it was going to take like 3 hours and then take 3 hours to get back. He didn't want to miss the show for anything. So I was really bummed. So next time I go to Mexico City, man, I'm going to Santo's grave, man. I think he's in a mausoleum, so he might be above ground, but
I would definitely think
I still got to pay homage to Santo, man. But we did go to El Hijo del Santo's gift shop because he has his own store in Mexico City, and that's like a 2-room gift shop that's like a little mini museum to him and his father.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. That was awesome to look at. And so,
and besides, if you were going to Santo's grave, Mil Mascaras would probably be there trying to get one more over on him. Maybe he was trying to pin the mausoleum or something. So
so but man, Mil Mascaras is there, man. That would just been a dream come true too, man. I was so disappointed. I wanted to buy a gold Mil Mascaras mask, right? Because I love Mil Mascaras. That dude's a legend. I don't care what anyone says. He's a legend. And so I kept saying, Mil Mascaras, oro, right? Gold. And this dude kept trying to sell me the silver mask. And I was like, oro. And, man, I wasn't going to give up my 100 pesos for it. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
And that 100 pesos is about $5, just so you know.
Really? Wow. I had no clue.
Yeah. Dude, I got 2 masks because, I like lucha masks.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't going to buy any, man. I was like, man, I'm not going to give up $30-40 for a lucha mask. Dude, they had some high-quality masks. One, everywhere you go. Any tourist attraction in Mexico City is going to have a little stand or a booth selling lucha masks right next to it.
Right.
But I got me a La Parca lucha mask and an Atlantis lucha mask, and they were both nice, man. And I think I paid a total of $15 for both of them.
That's awesome. What a deal.
Oh, no, that's my new collection right now, man, is lucha masks, man.
That's awesome.
Nothing but lucha masks. I'm going to have so many lucha masks, man. I'm going to have lucha masks for every day of the month.
You should teach in them. Talk about the building, because a lot of us, I've obviously never been there, nor have I probably even seen it. But tell us a little bit about the building that the anniversary show took place, the legendary building.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, one, it's a dump. All right,
well,
on
that
the
makes
outside.
Sense. So is ECW Arena.
No, it didn't make sense. Man, when I hear arena, and the legendary Arena Mexico, right, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to go. There's going to be big fountains in front of it with, Montezuma statues or something. No. Dude, our Uber driver drove us down this, super crowded street, and he just stops in the middle of the street, and he's like, Arena Mexico. And I'm like, where? Right? I'm like, where? He's like, right here. And, dude, there was, this little beat-up sign, looked like one of those old motel signs, where the L's, out, where the light of the L's out, with a little arrow pointing to it, and it said Arena Mexico. I was like, what? And there it was. It was just right there. And the sidewalk to get to Arena Mexico, you can only fit 4 or 5 people across, And it's so crowded because you have all these booths selling bootlegs and action figures and masks and little old ladies roasting corn and selling tacos and candy, and, Mexican candy, man. It was like a little street bazaar or street fair, just on the sidewalk, man. And, all I heard about was people pickpocketing you. So I, thankfully I didn't have my wallet on me, but, I just keeping a hold of my pesos in my pocket. And, but it was so alive, man. It was just so exciting to be there and just look at the booths and, and I wanted to take so many pictures, but everyone was like, no photo, like that. Man, dude, nobody cares. It's Mexico, man. Why do you care if I take a picture of your merchandise? Literally nobody cares, I mean, that little old lady is selling corn, roasted corn. Nobody cares,
right.
They're really adamant, man. No photo. And so, dude, I could have hung out all night on that sidewalk just looking at merchandise and, watching stragglers, it was so neat. And you go up to this place and you see these 3 metal garage doors, right? And you're like, oh, okay, this must be where they load the ring or whatever, right? No, that's the main entrance of the arena in Mexico. Like these 3 metal garage doors. And so I'm just looking for their entrance because our buddy Ricardo's like, hey, meet us at the main entrance, right? So we're walking around like lost. I mean, you knew we were tourists, one, because I'm white, and two, my buddy's like a Muslim from the Middle East. And so you knew we were tourists, and we're all looking around and like, oh, man, we're so lost. And all we saw were these 3 metal garage doors. And I text my buddy Ricardo, like, I'm lost. And he said, no, man, that's the main entrance. I was like, oh. And so all of a sudden they lift up the garage doors and boom, there's Arena Mexico, And then you had to like go through, the checkpoints or whatever to get inside with your ticket and, all that stuff. So, but it was so neat, man. So that's the outside, right? Like I said, the outside is a dump, man, but it's like the atmosphere is so awesome, man. I had so much fun just hanging out, walking, and looking at the merchandise, man. Mm-hmm. And you go inside this arena, and there's just something, Scott, I mean, you've been to MSG.
Oh, yeah.
You've been to the Boston Garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
The original Boston Garden, yes or no?
No, not the original Boston Garden, but I have been in Madison Square Garden.
Okay, but you've been into famous football stadiums.
Yes.
You've been to Fenway. You've been to Wrigley. I'm not saying you didn't, but if you've been to Wrigley Field, there's just something special about these places.
Yep, absolutely.
That's Arena Mexico, man. Because I've been to Madison Square Garden, for sure. So, and there was just something special about watching a concert in Madison Square Garden. Yep. And so when you go, even when I saw the first Dragon Gate show, knowing I was in the ECW arena, like you feel that, right? That just specialness about the place.
Yep.
Even that place is a dump, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they actually renovated it pretty nice. I thought it was okay when I went. But, when you go to Arena Mexico, you're just like, this is like the most special place on earth, And it's set up that, one, the stage, I don't care what anyone says, man, CML has the best stage ever. One, the wrestlers come up like on the 3rd level, then they got to walk down the stairs, and then they got to walk down the ramp to get to the ring. And all you got are like these hot women just dancing, all these hot I mean, dude, anyone who's ever watched Lucha Libre on Telemundo knows about the hot dancers, right? Your wife or your girlfriend comes in, you're like trying to change the channel because they got That's Mexico, man. That's like a dream come true, man, seeing the CMLL dancers, man. And, but they have the coolest stage. And then the floor, dude, we're 10th row, Scott. 10th row, $100 a ticket. Like not 100 pesos because that's only $5, but $100 a ticket.
Wow.
And we're 10th row. And we're at the biggest show of the year. Man, WrestleMania, man, last 2 WrestleManias, I think our budget was $250 a ticket, and we were lucky to be in the lower bowl at those 2 WrestleManias. And you forget about a floor seat or 10th row for $100. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, you just couldn't. I don't know, man. I mean, have you ever been on the floor for WrestleMania? Either one of you?
No,
I've never been to a WrestleMania.
Come on, Nate, you're breaking my heart.
No, when I was at WrestleMania 20 at the Garden, I was in the 200s. That was about as low as I got. And I mean, I've been on the floor for shows, but I've never been on the floor for a Mania. Look, I get what you're saying, Nate, Will, because. Again, I've been to the Garden, I've been to Wrigley, I've been to Fenway, I've been to Yale Bowl, which is the same thing, old, decrepit, broken down, but the sense that you feel. I mean, think about it, Nate. It's probably like the Scope used to be,
Yeah, the Scope. I went to Fenway a couple times when I was in college. Even though I hate the Red Sox, it's still one of my favorite ballparks. Even though, like you said, it doesn't have all the most modern accoutrements, there's a sense of history there. And I think that when you have the biggest event in the biggest venue, that's something that atmosphere is hard to replicate. And so it sounds like just from your retelling of your experience, Will, that it's something that even if the matches weren't good, which I know they were, even if the matches weren't good, it would have been worth it just to be there for that experience.
100%. 100%. Like, okay, so Nate, if we're going to have wrestling pilgrimages, right? Okay? All right, where you have to go somewhere Like, you have to go to a WrestleMania before you die. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You really do. You're going to have to go to Tokyo. You're going to have to go to Japan and either go to Kurikan Hall or the Budokan or the Tokyo Dome. You got to go. You got to experience it, right?
Yep.
And you got to go to Arena Mexico. There's no two ways about it. You have to. Those are your three pilgrimages. You can say, yeah, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam. We're not going to say Bound for Glory because they ain't earned that yet. I'm just saying. But you understand. But you know where I'm coming from. Like, you have to go to certain places. You have to go to Arena Mexico. You know, if you're a wrestling fan, you owe it to yourself to go to that arena. It's just so, like, special, man. Like, you know, I went to Lambeau Field. I've been to Lambeau a couple of times, man. You just get those shivers, man. Like, oh, I cannot believe I'm here.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And that was Arena Mexico. So Arena Mexico, I'm 10th row, you know. Dude, there are vendors selling masks. I was, you know, trying to get that Mil Mascaras mask from the vendor. Man, they're selling noisemakers. Like, if you ever hear Mexico shows, you hear like the cowbells and the noisemakers and all that.
Yep.
Dude, those people are selling it. They're selling toys and action figures and T-shirts and beer and soda and popcorn. Man, no churros though. Man, I was really disappointed. I wanted a churro at Arena Mexico. Man, I couldn't get me a churro or a churro. You know, couldn't do it. And so
okay,
hold on. I just got to say about these vendors, they do not give a shit if a match is going on in the ring. They are going to block your view. They do not care. That's
funny.
I'm serious, man. I'm like, man, I said my buddy, because I didn't pay $100 for a ticket. My buddy paid $100 for this ticket, and you're blocking my view, you know?
That's funny.
Yeah.
So it looked like back in August. It's curious. It's funny you brought up the whole La Park Rush match, because it looks like back in late August there was shit going down about this. It looked like the main event was Matt Taven and Volador Jr. Versus Rush and Barbaro Cavernario in a hair versus hair match.
Who is freaking amazing? Yes. Okay. So here's a quick story. Here's what happened. The L.A. Park and Rush started a program, and they were going to build to a hair versus mask match. Rush's hair versus Park's mask. Problem is, L.A. Park was so popular coming back to Arena Mexico, they were going from 4,000 or 5,000 people a week to 10,000 plus to sellouts with this program. So now all of a sudden, and then L.A. Park is a big hit in AAA too, because he's freelance. So he's doing AAA. He did the main event Triple Mania and the anniversary show co-main event this year, like in 1 month. And so he's a big deal this year. And so from what I understand from people who listen to the Gossip Machine more than I do, is that L.A. Park was like, well, why am I going to lose my mask when I can get, because I think the original idea was for him to lose his mask, get a big payday going out. Right?
Right.
And he's like, why am I going to lose my mask when I'm so damn popular? I can run this train for another year,
Yep.
The problem is he's a freelance guy. If he's going against Rush, who's a CMLL guy, why are they going to job out their number one guy to a freelancer? It would have been like when Sting came in. And I know Sting was with the company, but he's still WCW, whatever, Invasion guy, whatever you want to say. It'd be like somebody who's not under contract coming in and beating John Cena, for the belt or something. They were just like, we're not going to do it. The idea was L.A. Park's going to lose his mask to our number one guy and get that big payday. And so I can understand both sides. If I'm L.A. Park, man, run that train, get that famous mask. L.A. Park's a legend. He is if you only know La Parka from WC Nitro, you're missing out. The guy is a certified legend, Hall of Famer. Okay? Awesome. And he's 52 years old. He's fat as hell, and he's one of the best wrestlers in the world. That's just legit. All right? And then you got this guy, Rush. I'm telling you, he is the best heel in the business. He is hot. Dude, when he's wrestling, man, there's just something, man, where I just got to watch every move. I got to know what this guy's going to do next, what's going to happen next. And so I can see CMLL not wanting him to lose. If he's going to lose, make him lose to another CMLL guy,
right.
Right. That type of match. And so I get both sides, but, it was a letdown, man. However, the show itself was not a letdown. The show itself, one of the best shows I'd ever been to.
Awesome.
Now, and the two main events were legit like match of the year contender type matches. Okay. They had this first match, which was a ladies match, and I didn't know any of these ladies. I just know one of them was married to Negro Casas, who is another legend, and then one of them was just fine as hell. Her name was Reina Isis or Reina Isis or Reina Isis or something. She was hot, man. That's all I know. And the crowd, like, she does this gimmick where she has like those like Arabian pants, like Aladdin pants on, and then like someone from the other team will tear them off, so she's then like, you know, more exposed, and then the crowd goes crazy. You know what I mean? And so, but either way, the wrestling in that match was super fun, and we enjoyed the opener. Then Negro Casas. Are you either of y'all familiar with Negro Casas?
I've heard of him. I know who he is. I don't think I've ever seen any of his matches, but I've heard of him.
Okay, Nate. Okay, Scott. You know, we hung out and we watched a ton of wrestling when I was hanging out with JT up in Rhode Island.
Yep.
Next time I go, we're going to do nothing but watch Negro Casas, man. Nate, you're going to drive to Rhode Island so me, you, Scott, and JT can watch Negro. Legitimately one of the top 10 wrestlers of all time in the TV era. Just so great. Been putting on classic matches since the 1980s. Okay? And he gets better with age. He is arguably better in his 50s than he was in his 20s and 30s.
Wow.
Best wrestler. And so he's in the next match, and that guy is over. I have never heard a crowd chant for a wrestler as loud as him. Now, I've heard huge Cena pops. You know what I mean? I've heard huge CM Punk chants, Daniel Bryan yes chants, but I've never heard a crowd chant as loud as they did for Negro. Negro! Negro! And he's one of my favorite wrestlers, so I'm right there too. Negro, Negro. Like I'm just like just this idiot jumping up and down like a little kid, man. 40-year-old grown man jumping up and down like a little kid because he's seeing one of his legends, you know. And so that match wasn't even that great, man. But I enjoyed the hell out of it.
That's awesome.
And then I saw another legend, this guy Atlantis. We had the Wrestling Observer 2000 Match of the Year with Viano 3 and their mask versus match. Atlantis, another guy in his 50s who's a legend. Saw him, and that was a great match because of the Rudo team. I don't know, I forgot their name, man, but they were badass, that Rudo team against Atlantis. I don't know, it's like La Sangre Diamantes, or I don't know what they're called, man. Anyway, they were good, but if I had my notes with me, I could tell you who they were. But that was like a legitimately great match to watch. Then there was this garbage match with another legend called Ultimo Guerrero. Okay, not a part of the Guerrero family, just a legend. Just lost his mask a couple of years ago to Atlantis in a classic match. And he was super over. But this whole crowd, the whole night, all they did was chant for the bad guys. They're what you call Rudos. And like the whole crowd chanted for the Rudos the whole night. So he was the only babyface or technico to get cheered up until that point. Everyone else, it was like boo the good guys, cheer them.
That's funny.
Then I have to mention the next match because this is like a legitimately great match that had the crowd going nuts, had me going nuts. L.A. Park, son of L.A. Park, El Hijo de L.A. Park, or so, I don't know, man. You know what I mean. El Hijo del L.A.
El Hijo de L.A. Park.
There you go. That's what I said. Yeah,
there you
go. And then they had Caristico. And you're like, Caristico? Well, he is the original Mystico, who you WWE guys would better know. The original who?
That would be one Sin Cara.
Sin Cara.
That's one Sin Cara. That's correct.
He's gone through a bunch of name changes over the last few years.
Yeah, he was Mr. C's when he came back to Mexico after Sin Cara, when he went joined AAA. Yeah. And now he is Caristico. And that's because another guy is known as Mystico, and that is like Rush's brother. And everybody hates that Mystico. They're like, they know he's a fake. They know he's not the real Mystico, so they boo him mercilessly. He was the guy who was booed the loudest the whole night, was the new Mystico. But, yeah, so you have a legend in L.A. Park, one of the greatest draws in recent Mexican history in Caristico, and then son of L.A. Park on one side. Then on the other side, you have couple of guys we just talked about, Pentagon and Phoenix, and then another guy named Diamante Azul, or the Blue Diamond, or whatever. And that dude kind of sucked, man. He's kind of sloppy, but he didn't screw this match up. And they had a legitimate match of the year contender, match that the crowd loved so much, that the crowd popped for so much. And I've never seen this in any other arena, but I've seen it on TV or on video. I've never seen it done. Crowd gives them a standing ovation, throwing money in the ring. And I got pictures that I could send to you, too, of them picking up money in the ring.
That's crazy.
You know, but throwing money in the ring and chanting, Esto es lucha, pa, 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 Esto es lucha, or this is wrestling, you know, and giving them a standing ovation. And so right there, you end the show right there, I'm good, man. I'm good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mission accomplished. Saw all my legends, saw a match of the year contender. Awesome. But then we get a double hair main event. Double hair versus hair main event. Hot match. Crazy, crazy dives. I told you they had a 3-tier stage. This dude, Barbaro Cavernario, or whatever, Barbaro Cavernario, right? This guy jumps off the top of the stage onto the bottom part of the stage in a superfly fly splash. Like, we're talking New Jack level dive just onto a metal stage on top of a guy. It was nuts. And then he wrestled the whole match, you know? and dude, that match, the third fall was so intense. I'm serious, guys. Because, I'm thinking Rush is going to win. His team's going to win. But you don't know because it's Mexico. They might be sending a message to L.A. Park like, yeah, it could have been you taking his hair, but it's not. Or, you know, who knows? But, man, it was so intense. The crowd was with every fall, every near fall, every dive, every big move, man. It just, like, every single one of them took your breath away. Like, oh, my God, is it going to end? And then the finish was a little flat because they were trying to do like this partners turn on each other deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how it's going to come across on TV. I'm just telling you how it came across in the arena where, like, you know, Matt Taven ended up popping his partner in the head with a super kickers, you know, like a Enziguri or whatever, or something like that. And then Rush hits his big move and pins him. And then, you know, Barbaro and Taven were already eliminated from the match, waiting to see whose partner was going to pin the other, see who's going to get the head shaved. And then I got to witness a haircutting ceremony in Mexico, man. The greatest freaking wrestling experience I've ever had. It was magic, man.
That's
it was
great.
one of the most insane experiences.
That's amazing.
You know, that was crazy. Dude, just so you know, the first 2 rows on the hard camera side in Arena Mexico, they're made of leather. And those are the seats that get the drink holders. All the other seats are like old hard plastic seats from the 1960s, you know. And then if you jump up too hard in your seat, you know, the seats are coming up from the wooden floor, like, you know, all the bolts are loose, man, you know. But those first 2 rows are like these like super nice leather seats, man. My buddy Johnny, he made the joke that those seats were made from the skin of all the wrestlers who have bled in the ring in Arena Mexico. Well, I'm telling you, man, just guys, we have to go to Arena Mexico, man. We will live like king for 2 days. I didn't get sick. I drank the bottled water. I ate the food. The food was amazing. Everything was cheaper than cheap. Oh my God.
Yeah, I definitely want to have like authentic. If I ever went, I would definitely want to do authentic. Because I'm a big Mexican food junkie. So, now, if you want to watch this show, I believe from what I read, if you are a member of the Honor Club, the Ring of Honor Club, because they streamed it live, so I'm assuming it's on there like on demand or in their archive or whatever. So if you want to, if you're a member of Ring of Honor's Honor Club, the show should be there in the archive. Let's take a break. Great first segment, guys. Will, great experience.
Any more Mexican questions? I feel like an expert on Mexico, man.
Well, why don't you promote? You talked more about it than you said you were going to, but where else can
excited, man? The greatest show I've ever been to, Scott.
Where else could you find? Where else can we find you talking about this exceptional experience?
once again, go to WrestleNomics. Is it WrestleNomics Radio? Or
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me make sure. I'm typing it in right now to see if that's what pops up. Okay.
We love breaking the fourth wall.
Man, I'm so bad, man. I feel bad. Yeah, just type in WrestleNomics Radio. Okay, or you can go on Twitter and talk to my buddy Chris at WrestleNomics. Like his name is WrestleNomics on Twitter. But go to WrestleNomics Radio and type that in Google, and it'll pop up on all these websites. You can listen to the show I did. It's for free. My buddy Chris, because he serves like a patron site or something, so he did this show for free so he can get it out there. And then, dude, I want to hype up. My buddy Ricardo works for like he does reporting down there, like some journalism. Like he's interviewed wrestlers like when they come in town. Like I know he's done like NXT guys and like you know, he does like stuff down there. He has a website where like you can get his review of the CMLL show. Okay.
Oh.
And it's called Pulvera. Man, I'm butchering this stupid name. That's what, man. I need to learn Spanish. I'm going back to college so I can learn Spanish. I feel like I'm disrespecting my people, man. Like those are now my people. Like I've adopted them, and they have adopted me. They didn't really adopt me. Man. I'm just saying, like they didn't care shit about me. I'm just saying, like I love that place like so much. Anyway, his site is called POLVORA.com. Pulvora. Okay. Pulvora. And if you type in Pulvora CMLL 85 Anniversario, you'll see his review. And then you'll just have to like Google translate it because it's in Spanish, right? However, what he did, this is what's cool about his review. What he did was this dude goes to Arena Mexico like 2 or 3 times a month, right? Like this show was like a good show to him, but it wasn't a great show, right? To me, it was the greatest show I'd ever been to in my life. For him, it was whatever.
It was a Tuesday.
It was a Friday. It was WrestleMania. It was like going to a good WrestleMania to him, not a great one, right? You know. But for him, what he did is he gave his thoughts on the matches, and then he turned around and he decided to what do you call it? Give our reactions, like me and my buddy Hassan, like give our reactions to the show. And, you know, and so, like, he'll even say, like, yeah, one of my friends was jumping up and down out of his seat. And I was like, oh, yeah, that wasn't me. But, dude, it was all me, man. I was acting like an idiot, man. Like, I did not even – I couldn't control myself, man. Like, I was surprised I didn't get shot. But, you know. Anyway, yeah, go check that out. That's super fun, too.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, we'll take a break. We're going to come back, and we will conclude Will's weekend of fun and frivolity back in the States, as he was in the house on Sunday night for, quote, for a hashtag Cell of Twizzlers, otherwise known as Hell in a Cell. Brother Nate, Brother Will, myself, Brother Scott. More after this.
4K.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, along with Main Event, Survey Says, the Monday Night Wars, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction show, as well as Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver special network podcasts and pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Match of the Week podcast, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Through the Years, Worldcast, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Center Stage, and Letters from Kayfabe, plus much more. And on our very popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as Talkin' Pop, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, NBA Team, PTBN Play, Sunday Groove, Breaking Balls, and Lucha Undead.
As well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans.
With the hard-traveling fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversations, Geek and Sassy, and Marvel Age Podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows, plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback today. All these shows, plus others, available at PlayStation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects, and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlayStation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and thehistoryofwrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlayStation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
We are back on Place to Be Nation's main event. Of course, it is I, the Godfather, alongside my tag team partner, Scott Criscola, and of course, we have our special guest in the building this week, the Renee Paquette to our Cole and Graves. I don't know why I called her by her government name. The Renee Young. I guess because it's her birthday and we're Facebook friends, humble brag. And it came up on my Facebook feed. Renee Paquette's birthday is today. So happy birthday, Renee Young, in the past, because by the time this comes out, it won't be her birthday.
Isn't it like Renee Moxley now? Or is it Renee Ambrose?
I guess it would be Renee Moxley.
Wait, time out. Did you just call me Renee Young?
Would you rather be Jonathan Coachman in this scenario?
Oh, that's definitely you, man. I'm just saying.
Anyway,
I'll play the role, man. I just want to make sure I'm playing the right role. That's all. I don't care. I just got to make sure. That's the role I'm playing.
I have no problem with Renee. That she's not Gordon Soley, but she is an upgrade over the previous inhabitant of that chair.
That is true. That is true.
Why y'all picking on Coach like that?
We love Coach.
Hey, I have no qualms with that man, Jonathan Coachman. I would happily trade bank statements with him.
Hey, I played basketball with Coach, so I can always and I got some great.
Really?
I did. I played basketball with him. And I also got great jokes about Taz as well. I'll tell those off mic. Anyway.
Yes, I don't need any more podcast beef with one brother Taz.
That's right. Yes.
Been there, done.
Hold on. Before we get into the show, what's your beef with Taz? What happened?
It wasn't a beef that I had with Taz. It was when I was doing the old Review and Impact show over on The Law, and my co-host Brian Mann was not the biggest fan of Taz, and he had said some things. And later that night, had a conversation with one brother Taz, and the beef has been squashed. We still follow each other on Twitter. It's all love, but it was an intense evening. That's all I'll say about that.
Wait, you mean like actually talk to him?
Yes, Taz hit me up. He slid into my DMs, and we had a conversation.
Very diplomatic way of putting it, Nate.
Yeah. It was one of the weirdest nights I've had on social media.
I want to say, man, and I'm going to say this: if you're in the public eye, And you can't take criticism in this day and age. You don't need to be in the public eye. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
I just want to get big enough where I can just go around and listen to podcasts and go and slide into people's DMs on Twitter that say negative things about me while I'm probably drinking beer out of a golden goblet.
Golden goblet.
That's how I imagine Taz was that night. He just had his golden goblet drinking some beer, Red Hook's finest, and I'll show these guys what's what.
Brooklyn Lager. All right, so brother Will, you came back. You got back on the other side of the border. You did return successfully. And then Sunday night you were in your haunt, the AT&T Center in San Antonio, for Hell in a Cell, a.k.a. the Cell of Twizzlers. First off, before we get to the matches and stuff, when you walked in, because I don't know if you saw it on Twitter beforehand, but when you walked in the building and saw the red cell hanging off the ceiling, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Dude, I'm just going to be honest with you, man. I didn't have a problem with it. Because here's the thing. Most wrestlers, they wear darker clothing, right? Mm-hmm. Black. It's actually easier to see through than like if the black cells and the or the blue ones.
I wanted to
because they pop out more.
Right. I was hoping that the metal was actually red metal and it wasn't like, how you could buy like the plastic cover that you can like go over the actual cell. I was hoping it was legit metal, red metal. But
it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. When they got close-ups of it, it was.
Yeah.
All right, here's we'll run down the results quick and then we'll break it down a little bit. The New Day retained the SmackDown tag titles on the pre-show. They beat Rusev and Aiden English. Randy Orton beat Jeff Hardy in the first Hell in a Cell match. Becky Lynch, Becky, Hachimachi, is your new SmackDown Women's Champion. She beat Charlotte. Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre retained the Raw tag titles in a very, very, very good match against Dean Ambrose and
that was great. You are underselling that shit. That was a great match.
Oh, it was an amazing match. We'll get into it. AJ Styles retained the WWE title over Samoa Joe under questionable circumstances, apparently. The Miz and Maurice defeated Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella. We all know where that feud's headed. Ronda retained her Raw Women's title, defeating Alexa Bliss. And then the main event, Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman in a Hell in a Cell match with no disqualification and no countout, ended in a no contest. Okay, I'm going to let that hang for a few minutes. We'll get to that in a minute. All right. Before we get to the live portion of it, or the live aspect of it, Brother Nate, just general observations of the show.
Overall, I thought it was a pretty solid show. I thought that one of the benefits of the co-branding of the pay-per-views that we've seen lately is there seems to be a lot less filler than there were when it was brand-specific shows. Mm-hmm. And so, for the most part, you're going to get good stuff. I thought that the matches that needed to deliver, for the most part, delivered. I too, have my thoughts on the main event. But, yeah, like I've been pretty down on a lot of the WWE shows lately, but this one was pretty good. Like I thought that this was a nice bump, I guess, coming off of SummerSlam, which I also thought overall was a pretty strong show. So I think that, the storylines I think still need some recalibration in certain instances, but if I'm just judging this for one night of wrestling programming, I thought it succeeded in what it was trying to do.
Yeah, I definitely think it did too. I mean, definitely since the co-branding, I feel like we have just nothing but title matches, which I think is awesome. And then what is not a title match is something that's meaty enough that it demands a slot.
Yeah.
How was the layout, Will? Were there any empty spots or anything, or was it pretty much full?
Man, you know what's weird is like, okay, so in Arena Mexico, right? The bottom bowl was full, like capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just could not find a seat in that bottom bowl. And there was like maybe one or two sections up at the top, right, that were kind of spare, right? It wasn't a sellout in Arena Mexico, but it was close to, right? Like maybe 1,000 off or 800 off or something crazy, right?
Right.
Hell in the Cell, man. and San Antonio is my city, so I know. You know, it's not like a big spend-in city, right? The nosebleeds, they were packed. You know, you couldn't find a seat up in that top bowl. Man, a lot of empty seats in that bottom ring and the floor, man. You know, so they said that they sold out. They didn't. I'm just telling you.
Interesting.
You know, and so I noticed that. But no, the other thing is too, when there's a Hell in a Cell up in the risers, the Videotron or whatever that is, that's like in the middle of the arena, it's up even higher, and so you can't really watch the matches from the screen, the big screen, like you could like at a regular.
Right. No, that makes sense.
I was kind of pissed off, man, because sometimes you want to watch some parts of the big screen, so you know get that stuff that's happening on the other side of the ring or the other side of the arena, whatever, you know.
Right.
So, you know, those are just kind of observations I had, like about that.
Right. Now, my brother, I've always wondered this, Will. My brother lived in San Antonio for a year, and obviously he used to tell me, you know, when the Spurs were home, the Riverwalk was just buzzing with excitement. Is it like that when there's a pay-per-view? Are things outside just as crazy? No?
No. No. Well, here's the thing, man. Like, the downtown area of San Antonio is 15 minutes away from the arena. So the arena's on the far east side, and you know, downtown is kind of central, and so you don't really have that buzz.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more, like when shows would take place at the Alamo Dome.
That's what I'm thinking. I guess that's what I'm thinking. I must be thinking the Alamo Dome.
Because the Alamo Dome is right there by downtown.
Oh, okay. My bad. Okay.
But the AT&T is on the outskirts, man.
Oh, okay. Okay. Any surprises? Anything catch your eye as a surprise on this show, Will, in terms of results or just anything in general that came not counting the main event. We'll get to the end of the main event in a minute.
Oh man, well that was
well that's an easy. I'm not throwing. Come on, man, you're a veteran. I ain't throwing a softball at you like that.
Okay. No, and here's why. Because I've been so disappointed in WWE booking for so many years. I don't really pay attention to the result. I mean, it's sad, man, because I just went to a show where they did not give the fans what they wanted in LA Park versus Rush, right? But every fan that walked out of that arena walked out energized, invigorated, and happy to be a wrestling fan. Okay? Then I go to a show, what I was surprised about in terms of match quality was up until that main event. So we're not talking about the main event. We're talking about the rest show. Up until that main event, every match knocked it out of the park.
Yep.
In terms of keeping everybody satisfied. Even if you didn't like the result, you would be satisfied with the quality of the matches or whatever. You'd be happy that you saw that particular match, whether it was Rousey, the mixed tag, Becky Lynch winning, whatever. That first Hell in a Cell, which we'll talk about in a minute. You were happy to watch them all the way up until that main event.
Right.
And that was like on its way for me personally being one of the greatest WWE pay-per-views I'd ever seen.
Right. I brought her up.
And I'll elaborate on that in a bit. But that's my observation.
Okay.
Is how can two shows in one weekend have the crowds walking out in such like drastic opposites? One where you're just like Viva la Mexico, right? You're just all excited. And the other one was like, I mean, seriously, man, just hearing people say, man, they should give us our money back. And I'm like, dude, you just watched a great show. But these people are so pissed and so, invested in their boy Strowman or Roman that, man, they were mad. Like people, I mean, like I walked out of shows, I walked out of games where like the Spurs lost, where, you're just kind of like in a coma, just like, what the hell just happened here, And that's how this show was walking out. Like, it was such a letdown, man, that, that's really what stood out was the differences in the crowds walking out that arena, Viva la Mexico.
Well, maybe they'll do a pay-per-view down there. Who knows? They did one in, they did one in Puerto Rico. They're going to do a big show in Australia in 3 weeks. Maybe it's something they think about. Who knows? Let's talk about my girl War Becky. Nate, what have you thought of this so far? Obviously, it seems like everybody, they're trying to turn her heel, but she's getting cheered for not being a smiley, naive putz anymore. So maybe creatively this isn't the kind of way they went, because let's be honest, just like Rick, as much as I loved Rick as a heel or a babyface, Rick was a tougher babyface to get over because he's so good at being a son of a bitch. Is that the same case here? Like, are they... Becky's character in general is awesome, but is it what the WWE was expecting?
No. And I think it's comparable to what's going on with Roman Reigns. In the fact that the company has one direction, and if you read some of the reports and some of the scuttlebutt, which is just a fun word to say, some of the scuttlebutt about this program, even within the company, they've gone back and forth on the character. Is she a heel? Is she the babyface? Is she a good guy with an edge? And I think that's kind of muddled the story a bit. In ring, it's great. Like, I think those two are always fantastic together. But it's funny because in an ideal world, Charlotte makes for a much better heel, much like her father. And I think Becky makes for a babyface you can get behind. But because of the story they're telling and what they want us to feel, it's running contrary to what the audience wants. And so I think what we're going to end up with is a double turn when one person didn't need to turn at all, and that's Becky. And so it's like they've got that, again, what I was talking about earlier with the course correction and the recalibration. I think they'll land it because you've got two competent performers, but right now the story's a bit muddled because they are, much like with Roman Reigns, fighting the audience a bit.
So stupid.
What was the crowd like after she won, Will?
Oh, crowd was, popped huge.
Yeah, not what they want.
Huge. I mean, it was almost like people crying. Everyone's all happy and giving each other high fives. And nobody was crying. I'm just saying, but that's what pisses me off so much about this stupid company, And it really happened, around 2001, where it used to be, I'm sorry, whether it was The Rock or whoever, you listen to your fans and then you go in that direction. You know what I mean? You just did. They just did. They listen. I mean, Stone Cold, when he was coming on up, he was a heel, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And the crowd cheered for him. Then he becomes the biggest babyface in company history. Is because they set up the story okay, we're going to give the fans what they want, and we're going to make him the anti-hero, And then they got in this idea that it's okay because they wanted John Cena to be that merch seller and all that. It's okay if the fans boo him. And for Cena, it worked, right? But then you can't just make Roman Reigns the next Cena. It's just, it's such a, what's that word I'm looking for? It's so hard to watch. Mm-hmm. This guy trying in vain to be a baby face, and he's a freaking heel. Because the crowd has already decided they hate his guts. It's stupid. Turn him heel, make him an asshole, and eventually the crowd will love him just like you wanted them to all along. Yeah. You're prolonging your own goal.
Yeah, we would have been done with this 2 years ago.
Or preventing it.
We could have had the heel
done
turn
this 2-3 years ago.
Yep, and by this time now, we'd be ready for the Roman Reigns babyface run.
Absolutely. Dude, he would have been a babyface the last 2 years if they'd just done it. They should, when they turned the Usos heel, had Roman heel too, boom, the Usos are his henchmen. You have Samoans running roughshod, Usos beating up his former Shield partners. Usos interfering when he's up there against the big guy like Strowman or something. Whatever. And then eventually, because supposedly Roman, all you heard was, Roman has charisma and Roman can talk. Then you let him just kind of cut loose, and then all of a sudden, the crowd's like, oh, man, he's cool. And then all of a sudden they cheer him, and then boom, you got your babyface back with a little cred, with a little dirt under his fingernails. All of a sudden, you're not having to fight the tide, You just swim with it. And they refuse to swim with it because they have this corporate stranglehold myopic view of what the certain guy should be instead of just running with it. Just run with it. Oh, well, what if he gets hurt? Daniel Bryan might get hurt. Yeah, he might. So what? You run with it until it don't run, and then you switch freaking gears. It's wrestling. It's not rocket science. You make guys popular, or you make popular guys. You book them until they're not popular anymore. You don't try to cut off their nuts so that they're not popular. It's such a petty freaking company. Just run with it, and you'll make everybody happy because ring quality and match quality, they've never been better than in the last 5 years or 3 years, whatever. Or at least, let's rephrase that, haven't had the type of roster that would warrant that. You know what I mean? They just have so much great talent, but they make such stupid books. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, 30 years plus, 35 years plus, okay? And I absolutely don't give a shit about any of the results except sitting back. Like, I'm not emotionally invested because this company does not allow me to become emotionally invested. But I love the wrestling.
I love when you get philosophical.
I'm just saying, man, like, it's not, come on, Scott, you got to admit, man, it's freaking stupid.
I didn't say I disagreed with you. I just said I love when you get philosophical.
Oh, yeah, but Becky Lynch is being cheered. That's who the crowd is behind. Push it.
Yep.
Go all the way. Sell some freaking T-shirts. Do some freaking Irish commercials. I don't know, Irish Spring commercials, whatever. You know, roll with it. Capitalize on this shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Aer Lingus Airlines.
Reigns is getting booed. Give him red fucking eye contacts or something, you know. Make him a little devil heel. Nobody cares. Just make him evil.
And then the risk they run with Becky, though, is if they keep going down this path, eventually people aren't going to care. And that's the worst reaction you can have is indifference. And I think
because they already have these stupid preconceived notions of who should be over and who isn't, and they just get in their own way. They're tripping themselves over. It's stupid. Sorry.
Nate, who's the better wrestler right now? In ring. Who is the hottest and who's on his game more than anybody? AJ Styles or Seth Rollins? Because I feel like right now they're 1A and 1B.
I mean, I would say in terms of hotter, probably Seth Rollins, because I think if you look at the last 6 months, he's probably been put in the better programs. He's had, you know, time when you think back to that Raw Iron Man match. You know, he's had the bigger spotlights. To me, AJ's one of the best wrestlers in my lifetime.
Right.
You know, and so I'll always be a fan. I'll always be in the tank for AJ Styles.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think you can't go wrong with either guy. But if I was going to say who is the person that feels like they're trending upwards as opposed to maybe just kind of not falling flat, but just maintaining a status quo, I'd say Rollins is hotter at the moment to me.
Did you get that feeling live, Will, that, I mean, the AJ Joe match was great, but that tag match was sizzling. Do you get the feeling that even though AJ maybe move for move is the best in the company at the moment, that Seth just seems hotter right now?
Here's what I'm going to say, and this isn't even a knock on Seth. It's going to sound like it though. He's hot because he's not the man. He's not in that world title picture. We saw what Seth Rollins in the world title picture looks like, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
He wasn't good. He was a horrible heel. He was a horrible world champion. And the numbers bear it out that nobody wanted to see it either. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that as a knock on him. I'm just saying, like, when him and Ambrose reunited as a tag team, and even then doing this Intercontinental thing, it feels like it's the right place for him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like AJ feels like a world champion, but it's like, and like, man, I love Nakamura. I love Joe. I love that Joe match that happened the other night. Okay, even though the crowd didn't care, man. And I say that, and it's hard to say that because I wanted it to be the match of I wanted it to be a match of the year contender. Because I love those dudes, man. I love cheering for those guys. But it wasn't. It wasn't the best match of the night. And it was that one and the Becky Lynch, Charlotte had a lot of quiet moments too, up until the end. You know what I mean? Just they had to follow that crazy Hell in the Cell, right? So But that match, man, people they didn't care, dude. And what are you gonna do when the crowd don't care?
I think the thing with AJ, and I don't want to say his title reign has been a flop, but it's certainly they have not capitalized and maximized.
It's been anticlimactic, is what it's been.
And if you look at the feud with Nakamura, it's very similar to this Joe feud where the matches been okay. They haven't been
good to great. Sometimes good to great. Yeah.
But I think the story to me has been the more intriguing part, because I think when Nakamura found his voice as a heel, not that they've really done anything with him, but I thought that added something to it. And the stuff with Joe going after the family and the storybook promo they had was it last week, I thought that was creative. And it's like you've got all the ingredients here to make a great meal, and for whatever reason, instead of making filet mignon, they made a really good hamburger. And there's nothing wrong with a really good hamburger, but it's not filet mignon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I kind of see where you're coming from, but see, I look at it the other way, man. Nobody wanted Nakamura to turn heel when that happened. I'm not saying he didn't do a good job of it or try his best. I'm saying nobody wanted to see.
He's got to be a heel because he's Japanese.
Man, come on, man. This ain't 1945.
Tell that to Vince.
Hey, I've wanted a Yakuza faction for about 4 years now.
And the thing with Nakamura is, and this is a.
But you understand what I'm saying, man. He was one of the most popular wrestlers they had.
And that speaks to the larger point of storytelling, though, because I don't think they've known what to do with Nakamura on the main roster. I think
they didn't know what to do with him in the company, man.
I think NXT was a much better presentation of the guy than he is now.
For sure, I agree.
I think the NXT they did, and I hate to keep going down the Japanese route, but I don't think they know what the hell to do with Asuka either, because she feels like an afterthought on most of these shows.
Absolutely, man. She was ripping it up.
And now she's doing like this Rush Hour buddy cop team with Naomi.
I think Asuka and Becky are going to meet at WrestleMania. That's just I think Asuka will get the title shot, and that's when she wins her first.
So you think they're going to rehabilitate her?
Yeah, I definitely think they will.
At this point,
yeah, I think they will. I think they will. All right.
Hey, so too.
In the main event, we had Roman and Braun, which up until the guys came out was actually not a bad match.
No, it was a great match.
They got good chemistry.
A super fun, nasty match.
Yep.
Live.
Then the guys come off, Drew, Dean and Seth, and they do their shit. And then all of a sudden, it seems like Braun and Roman have been like chloroformed, like Giante, for fucking 20 minutes or something. Then all of a sudden, out comes Brock in his Game of Thrones beard and knocks him out with F5s, and then they're dead. It's like the Bad Blood '97 match when Taker beats the shit out of Shawn for 35 minutes. Kane drops him with one bad tombstone, and then Shawn, who's lost like 38 pints of blood, somehow crawls over like a fucking corpse and gets the pin. But
at least he got the pin.
Well, that's true too. But I've never. A match that has no DQ and no count out actually ends in a no contest. I mean, what the fuck, man? It just makes no sense.
Shit ever.
It was the stupidest ending I've ever seen. And I wonder if the only reason they did it was to give us what we're going to get on October 6th in Melbourne, which is a triple threat match for the Universal Championship, which I still think Roman's going to win anyway.
Saudi, man. I thought it was Saudi.
Yeah.
Was it?
No, you're right. I'm sorry. No, you're right, Will. My bad. It is November 2nd in Saudi. They got the 6-man in Melbourne. My bad. You're right. Good call. It's November 2nd in Saudi Arabia is the triple threat. My bad. You're right. They have the 6-man in Melbourne. So all that build and all that, and in the end, we get no ending. Just so Brock can come back. I thought that was pretty fucking dumb.
Ruined a great pay-per-view.
Yeah, it did. It really did. Every match was great.
Scott, you and I had already scheduled this show. I was already going to tell you and Nate how this was the greatest pay-per-view I'd ever been to.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that, man, because when people are just walking out so dejected, man.
Yeah. Not a way to end the show.
Viva la show, my brother. It just can't. You can't compare the two. It's so sickening because it could have been great. Hell, dude, Brock F5'd Roman onto Strowman. Why couldn't someone just crawl over and make the pin?
That would have been great, actually, and I don't think that would have hurt anybody.
Literally, to a pinning position.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that would have been a perfectly fine ending. Although, dude, you know where they kind of lost was when the Shield and the Ziggler guy. I don't know what's their team called. Is it just Ziggler?
Something
Drew?
of War.
We'll call him Drizzler or something.
Drizzler.
Whatever they are, man. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, when they came out, and then, like you said, Braun. I'm sorry, dude. Braun's like a monster. What the hell is he doing laying out like that for 22 minutes?
Yeah, it's
you know
crazy. Absolutely crazy.
That,
and what's funny is we're not going to get a regular pay-per-view, a regular domestic, regular WWE pay-per-view until Survivor Series, and even that's not going to be regular pay-per-view because we'll have team matches. So it would probably TLC in December because we have the Super Show in Melbourne on the 6th. We then have the all-women's pay-per-view Evolution on the 28th out here on Long Island. Then we have that following weekend, that following weekend, we will have the Crown Jewel, which is the show, as Will mentioned, in Saudi Arabia, where we'll have the triple threat. Then we'll have Survivor Series, which is in L.A., and we'll probably have a couple of regular matches, but there'll be, I'm sure Roman will be on a Team Shield versus Team Braun, or whatever the fuck it'll be called. So we're not going to get a regular domestic pay-per-view show with the possibility of storyline advancement until December with TLC. Because let's be honest, a lot of these foreign shows, the Melbourne show, the Saudi Arabia show, and they're bringing back Starrcade, which I don't know if they're going to treat that like they are these, because we didn't get to watch Starrcade last year. They treated it as a simple house show I think it was in Greensboro.
Yeah.
But even if they do that, that'll just be a simple. So we have a myriad of outdoor specialty shows that probably won't have much in the way of storyline advancement or title changes.
Can I argue with you on that or disagree?
What, that they're not important, or that there might be title changes?
That they're now, like, because it used to be like they were exhibition shows or house shows, right?
Right.
Like the Greatest Rumble ever felt that way.
Uh-huh.
I think with the success of that show, and with the fact that this, even I think Meltzer said that the Australia show, both shows, Saudi and the Australia show, are going to make more money for them than WrestleMania does. And WrestleMania is their premier show, right?
Oh, I agree.
And for those other shows, like the Greatest Rumble ever show, they were promoting it hard with like commercials and like cutouts in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Here, they're actually pushing that like on TV. Like, hey, we're going here and we're doing Shawn Michaels interviews and Taker interviews, hyping it up. I think they've shifted their thing on that. I think it's going to be more like SummerSlam 92, like with Bulldog Owen, like, you know, like where it's going to be a legit show with payoffs and whatnot and angle advancement. I think you're I don't want to say you're wrong. I just think that with the amount of money that's involved in those shows, I think it's I think that they're no longer going to treat it as just like a house show in these places.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I really do. I believe that. Like,
okay,
you know, because they are pushing those so hard on TV. You know, I mean, dude, you think they're not going to like play that up? Shawn Michaels' first match, or Taker versus Triple H, the last time. You know, your boy Triple H, like, you know. Mm-hmm. Oh, I honestly think that this is just, they're straight up going that route of this is part of our universe now.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with Will on that, Scotty, but I think the problem is, like, there's always an inherent issue baked into this, and it's that now instead of focusing on one show a month, which can be problematic for their storytellers and their creative people, now you've got to focus on splitting your attention between 3 or 4 different shows in that span of time. And I don't know if they have the capacity to be able to tell these stories in a coherent fashion, other than, you know, they'll focus on the Triple H match because, you know, that's your man's and they know where their bread is buttered. But I don't know if they'll be able to tell the stories of, you know, AJ or Charlotte and Becky or Roman and Braun and have it be clear and concise when you've got to juggle Crown Jewel, when you got to juggle the Australia show, when you got to somehow make Evolution feel important, when you've got to, get ready for Survivor Series. So I think they've got a lot on their plate, and to me the challenge is, will they be able to tell clear and concise and interesting and compelling stories, or will it just kind of fall flat because they got so many masters to serve, so many mouths to feed within this short span of time?
Let's just be honest, though, Nate. I don't think they give a shit.
No,
and what I mean by that is that they're not good storytellers anyway. They're not good bookers anyway. What's it going to matter if they screw up 3 shows in 1 month versus 2 shows or 1 show, man?
As long as the check clears, they're good.
That's it, dude.
That's why I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. I think, and now we see why they. And I hate to be, and I'm usually not this cynical. I'm usually the happy giddy one. But now we see why they're doing an all women's pay-per-view on the 28th, because the following week the women can't even get on the plane and fly there. So
pretty sneaky, sis.
So the men get the weekend end of October. The women get the weekend off the first week in November. So that's where I think that's coming from. Let's put it this way, Will. I'll split the difference with you for now. I think the Melbourne show is going to be treated as more of an exhibition. But I do think the Crown Jewel show in Saudi Arabia may have some teeth to it. All right, I'll split the difference with you. Okay. And as that card gets more and more fleshed out, and we see more matches being added over the next 6 weeks, I do think that the Saudi Arabia show will probably have a little more teeth than the Melbourne. I still think the Melbourne show is going to be treated like the global warming tour DVD, which I'm looking at right now on the Studio B shelf. That's how it's going to be treated. Just my opinion, just the way I feel. But I do think that as the month, because they're going to have a month of TV to have to deal with as well. We're just talking about the big shows. They've got 4 weeks of shitty television they've got to book too, and then when we get to Saudi Arabia on November 2nd. Then I think you'll see some teeth. So I'll buy into a little of what you're selling. My good.
Yeah, here's my thing now, and I firmly believe this. I don't think they ever tell good stories anymore. They just have good moments.
You're
you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's why I can't. That's why I don't. I mean, dude, I've not watched any. Well, I can't say that, man. I might catch an hour or SmackDown once in a blue moon. SmackDown happens during my rugby practice, so I won't take rugby every day of the week. But I'll catch an hour or 2 of Raw every once in a while, and it doesn't matter if I miss it or not. That's the thing, man. It's not really episodic TV anymore.
Right.
It's not can't miss TV.
No, it's not. No,
because they have trained us not to care about the results.
Right.
And so, dude, I had a great time at that pay-per-view. All I say is like, hey, what's going on? Oh, he cheated and won. Oh, okay. So that's why they're fighting. Yeah. And, you don't really have to watch the TV.
No one
to kind of like feel for this.
I feel like they've built it that way, and that's their problem. I agree. I think they have built it so where I watch Raw because JR and I record. Most of the time, I'm watching Raw on mute, and I actually enjoy it. I haven't watched the broadcast premiere of SmackDown in eons. I usually watch it the next day on YouTube, and they usually chop it up, and you can watch what pieces you want to watch, which is kind of what I do now.
Exactly. Watch what pieces you want to watch.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
once again, moments, not stories. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Well, I do not disagree with you on
AJ thing. Like, it's kind of cool if you watch like, they're heading this way, or even Nakamura, he kicked him in the nuts or whatever. But it's really like, it's not like, okay, let's take since, I'm on this Mexico kick, let's take the Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero feud from 2005.
Oh, yeah.
It told a story all the way from, one, because they had their history, but then it's told a story all the way from January up through the end of the summer, even transitioning up until Eddie's death, about Eddie not being able to beat Rey. And then you bring in like Dominique and Ladders and Vicky and just everything else and bedtime stories. And, man, that was storytelling. I mean, they just don't do that anymore, man. Yep. Like that Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels punching his wife in the face shit. What year was that? 2009, 2008?
2008.
That was great storytelling, man.
Yeah, it was.
They don't do it anymore, man.
Well, I'll tell you something.
Because not good storytellers.
I'll tell you something.
They have moments and great interviews every once in a while.
I'll tell you something. Speaking of Jericho, I think he's doing a great job helping these indie guys with storytelling. Because I think you could say this whole touring all over the world, match here, match here, match here, match here, with nothing in between. Yet here's Jericho, who is literally following Kenny Omega around the world. And then we see it all in. He douses the lights and comes back dressed as Pentagon and attacks him after the match. That's storytelling.
That? And I don't even like Kenny Omega. And I'm like, I can't wait to see Kenny Omega versus Jericho. And I don't even like Kenny. That's what I'm saying, though, man. Dude, before they screw it up, CMLL with La Parka and Rush, they were doing all the right things. I mean, they're just not good storytellers in WWE. And when they do have a story, like the story with Becky and Charlotte, is it really a good story? No, the story is the company's not listening to the fans.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the story, right? There's one really good story that I'm enjoying right now in that company, and we haven't talked about it, and that is the Bryan versus Miz feud.
It's a great feud. And
I wouldn't even put that on the company. I'd put that on Miz and Bryan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
And
but that's because they're kind of like, they're popular enough, but they're under a radar enough where they can probably get in their ideas and they'll get shit.
And my buddy of mine at work thinks that that's leading to Miz beating AJ for the title at some point between now and December. Daniel Bryan wins the Rumble in front of his house crowd in Phoenix, in the middle of Chase Field, and those two meet on April 6th at MetLife. Wow. Miz walks in champion, Bryan walks out champion. That's what he thinks. That's what
I'd be interested. I don't know. Okay, so first, ever since I started seeing this feud, like, when did they have the awesome match? Was it SummerSlam where they had the awesome match?
Yes.
Where Bryan lost?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
My buddy Charles lost over at Pro Wrestling Only. Check his site out, ProWrestlingOnly.com.
We love Charles.
Slow plug. Yeah. He's been on the show. Been place to be before.
Yep.
He was like, dude, because I didn't watch SummerSlam live, right? I was probably on the road or something. I don't know. I watched it live. And he's like, you have to watch. Yeah, I was on the road. I was actually traveling from San Diego, West Texas. And he said, you have to watch Bryan versus Miz. And he says, you're going to love it. And I was like, why? He's like, what's your favorite promotion of all time? And I was like, Memphis. He's like, it's a Memphis match. I was like, sold. And, dude, they're building matches around punches. And I was like, dude, they're going to do Bockwinkel Lawler where they, like, challenge each other over punches. Like, I was like, yes. I was so excited.
Yep.
Nate, you ever watch some of that old Memphis footage with Lawler?
Oh, yeah. Memphis, world class. That's how I cut my teeth on.
As long as you don't let Scott get in your ear, you just know that Jerry Lawler's the greatest wrestler of all time. Having said all that, I was like watching this feud.
How do you get invited back on podcasts? Really? How do you get invited back?
Because you love me.
My
when
God.
we watch Memphis together, when you want to watch Memphis together, what's the first thing you're going to turn your head? You're going to say, Will, that was some great shit.
I don't disagree. As a matter of fact, I watched...
Why? That's why, Scott, because you know I'm right.
I watched through the live... No, Jerry Lawler's not the greatest wrestler of all time. But I do think that he was... I gained a better appreciation for him. As a matter of fact, you know, my favorite Lawler feud, after watching the extensive library you gave me, and I always will appreciate it, is my man, him and Dutch. That awesome barbed wire match from '82. That match is fucking great.
The whole feud is great.
Yeah,
man.
It's awesome. Love Dutch.
So, okay, no, it's all great. So, having said that, back in the '70s, Lawler and Dundee had a feud, right? And the feud was, I think it was put up the title or put up Bill Dundee's wife's hair. And so I'm thinking the only way this feud can end is in a hair versus hair match, except it's going to be Miz and Bryan wrestling for the hair of Brie or Maurice.
Or Maurice. That would be fantastic. Could you imagine?
And to me, that's the way the feud ends. You do a hair versus hair match with the Y. Straight Memphis, straight punching each other in the face, fighting for the women. And, you remember like when Angle fought Edge and they had that hair match? Mm-hmm. And they had that barber chair up on the stage?
Yep.
You have two barber chairs Maurice and Bree locked in like a electric chair, just locked in. Can't run, can't hide.
That would be great.
The winner of the match, I'm booking it now. The winner of the match, right, gets to give the clippers to his wife, and then you cut off the other woman's hair. You just give them a WrestleMania payoff and say, look, your hair will grow back in a couple of months. Wear it by the wig. And he's going to give up hair. And that's how you end the feud.
That's funny.
And then you just let it go. It'll be the greatest shit of all time, and it'd be the perfect cap to this Bryan Miz feud. Tell me that's not a fucking awesome.
I think that's great. Yeah.
Nate, I got it from Nate.
Oh yeah, and I think to paraphrase the great Tony Schiavone, that would actually put butts in seats.
Yes.
That could be the main event of your pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like what'd you say? TLC? No, we're going to call it Hair LC. Okay.
Hair LC.
I'm just talking shit. I don't know.
That's
like,
fantastic.
We're going to call it, like, you're going to do this hair versus hair. I'm just in a Mexico kind of mood, man. I just saw this hair versus hair match.
Oh, since Vince loves musical-themed pay-per-view so much, instead of Great Balls of Fire, this could just be hair, and we could have the soundtrack to Hair playing in between the matches.
Have Aquarius playing and everything. Oh, absolutely.
The old nice, lo-fi indie band Pavement, Cut My Hair could be the theme song. Darling, won't you go and cut your hair. Man, I love that
Didn't
stuff,
Beck have Devil's Haircut? That title?
There you go. Look at you. Yeah, look, I mean, come on. There's all kinds of things. Just hair. Dude, they could have so many vignettes at barber shops. They can go back and have the $1 Million Man, like throwing $1 million for getting a haircut. You know, they get Mr. Perfect Kid out there swatting gum in a barber shop. Like, you can just do all kinds of things.
Swatting gum in a barber shop.
I mean, get those vignettes back there, man. Give us some wrestling and get these stories and have some fun and get these ladies to shave their heads.
Will, it is always a pleasure. It's been a while. It's good to have you back.
You know, it's awesome. You know, that's an awesome idea.
Oh, it's fantastic. They could wear like silk turbans. It'd be fantastic. I agree. I don't disagree with you at all.
Dude, like Buddy Rose back in Portland, like his head shaved, he would wear a mask that had like a wig attached to it, and every week they'd try and take that mask off and that wig, you know, and then they'd like get it, and he'd run off to the back with his shaved head, you know, and like, man, they could have, Earl did it. Remember he had like the
he had the headgear, the
headgear with the curly
Molly
hair.
Holly did it.
Molly Holly, I mean, come on, man. We can have fun with this, man, and you make it the main event because people actually care about the Miz and Bryan.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. You're exactly right. Yep.
I mean, to me, that was a great match to watch. Like, it was so entertaining, and this is what's sad about that AJ Joe match is that I loved it, dude. I thought they beat the shit out of each other. I don't know if that's how it came across on TV, but live it was like, ouch, 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 but nobody cared, you know, and it hurts me to say that, man, because I was rooting for that match. You know, I enjoyed it, but nobody cared. But, man, you put Miz and his wife versus Bryan and his wife, and the people got hot for a Brie Bella hot tag, man. Think about that statement. People lost their shit when Brie Bella got a hot tag.
Yeah. Who'd ever thunk that?
And AJ and Joe, two of the greatest wrestlers of this generation, wrestling the crickets.
Yep.
And that ain't AJ. I don't even think that's AJ and Joe's fault because they did have a hell of a match.
That story's been great with the whole storybook and it's been great. But I think I don't know. There's something AJ's got a gap somewhere, and as we continue to discuss here on Main Event down the line, maybe there's a way to close it. But
hey, you know what, man? And we brought this up when you compared Seth Rollins, dude. And this might suck to hear. He just might not be the world champion, man. He just might not be who people want to be their world champion. He's who you and me want as a world champion, Scott and Nate. He just might not be what the public wants as a world champion.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, man. I like those wrestlers. I love those wrestlers.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if we look hard and long at it, like I said with Seth Rollins is tearing it up. And I am not a Seth Rollins fan. I give him so many props right now. It just might be you got to accept your spot.
Well, I
think a certain spot for a certain level. David just might not be.
And I think that Miz
have the wrong opponents for him. And Joe and Nakamura are washed up, and they put them in bad heel roles that they didn't belong in, and that they're telling the wrong story that people don't want to hear.
And the Miz, like you said about Rush, the Miz just loves being a heel. Nobody loves being a heel anymore. I think that's also a lost art too. And I think the Attitude Era kind of ruined that, but that's another discussion for another day.
Well, the difference with Rush though is that they were building him to be the babyface, to be the John Cena of CMLL, and the crowd just turned on him like, screw you.
Yeah.
I mean, now, because the Arena Mexico, they cheer for all the heels. Now he's being cheered like he's a babyface Roman Reigns, or like a babyface Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? Right. But he's a bad guy. That's how they. But it works in Mexico. It's so weird, like how shit just falls in their lap.
It's funny. Will, it is always a pleasure. Don't be a stranger.
Come on, we haven't even the matches.
We did talk about enough of the matches. We've already gone on long enough. You talked about the food.
You cannot do a show where I get to see Ronda Rousey live and not talk about Ronda Rousey or what I would the year contender. We can't. We're going long. All right, I'm just going to filibuster here, Scott. I know I love you.
You want me to be unemployed? You're the one that's an hour back. Will and I, or Nate and I actually have, we have jobs too, and we're on the East Coast. Okay, just because you're on weird Mexico time.
We're going to drop 10 minutes in the spot. First off.
All right, we'll talk Ronda. Let's talk Ronda. The reason I didn't want to bring up Ronda is because her match was awesome, and there really was nothing to say other than both sold like some bitches. And I'll tell you something. I'll say this. We'll talk about Ronda for 2 minutes. Ronda's learning something that I didn't think she could learn well. And Nate, I want to ask you first and then Will. For somebody who was the baddest woman on the planet and wasn't used to doing this in MMA, in UFC, she can sell. She knows how to take a beating. She's not one of those ones that's like Brock who has to walk in there and think he's the cock of the walk, She takes a beating. And her comebacks have been just as exciting as her finishes.
Yes.
She's getting everything down.
What's not been hot is her Goldberg style, which is what she excelled at in UFC. But go, Nate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in everything bell to bell with Ronda has exceeded my expectations. I think that they've been really smart in the positions they put her in. They've been really smart with who they've put her in the ring with. She has impressed me with her offense. It looks crisp. It looks believable. Something like you mentioned, Scotty, has been something that I didn't think she could pick up this early on in her career. The only quibble I have with Ronda is her character work, her mic work. It's still, it still leaves a lot to be desired to use
stupid makeup, man. Don't try and be nice and ignore that ugly makeup.
Yeah, well, to use a Mexico comparison, since that is the theme of the night, her in-ring work is worth 5,000 pesos. Her character work might be worth $50 at this point, but I think that's something she can work on.
That's also stuff she didn't have to deal with.
$50 might be like 5,000.
And that's also something she didn't have to deal with in UFC. She didn't have to be a character.
She got a promo on Monday night where she used the word gumption, and I'm like, who is writing your material, Rousey? Because nobody under the age of 65 uses the word gumption in a serious, threatening manner.
It'd be like saying you're going to go out and party and say, I'm going to go carousing.
Yes.
Like, what?
Carousing.
I'm going to go down to the local speakeasy.
Boy, you go carousing tonight?
The speakeasy. And to Alexa Bliss's credit, she's now jobbed back-to-back pay-per-views. She tapped before Ronda finished the bar she was tapping. And so kudos to Alexa for putting over Ronda in such a big way. And she doesn't lose anything because Alexa's still awesome.
I mean, Ronda's the biggest star in the company. Ronda to me there are not very many people on the roster, and as much as I love AJ Styles, he's not somebody that moves the needle from a casual fan or even somebody looking from the outside in.
Right.
From that, AJ's not a guy that moves the needle. I don't think they have many people on the roster that move that needle. Ronda Rousey might be the top of the list.
Right. No, I agree.
No, she is the biggest star by far that company has.
Yeah, bigger than Brock at this point, I would say.
Well, it's because she's on every week.
She was bigger than Brock when she was in MMA. I mean, I'm not saying she was better. I'm not saying whatever. I'm just saying she transcended MMA, whereas Brock kind of was like, Brock is still MMA/wrestling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ronda's just superstar, you know. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, she's got a lot of gumption.
Yeah, a lot of gumption.
At the speakeasy.
Well, she can go out carousing. She'll be all right. Now, but here's the thing, man. Like, and maybe y'all can explain it to me because I don't watch the product. Why was like the crowd booing her, man? Like, oh, she's been doing great, and like she's getting a lot of boos, man. And I don't understand why. God.
Ronda?
Is that something that's been was that something that's been regular? Like, are they turning Ronda?
I haven't heard any boos. There were boos in the building Sunday night?
Oh, no. Dude, when she did her interview, there were boos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, and again,
when she came out, people were booing her.
Yeah, it was the same thing on Raw when she first started talking, and I think it's because she doesn't have a voice yet as a character. And she had this problem even in the UFC where she wasn't, like, she's great in video packages and she's great in sit-down interviews, but she's not John Jones or Conor McGregor or somebody that's going to Chael Sonnen. She's not somebody that's going to talk you into a fight. That's just not in her right now. And so, yeah.
She should never be smiling. That's stupid.
Yeah, well, she
People
came out
like
on,
that. Stop. Want to break your arm, Ronda. They don't want to see smiling.
But she came out on Raw the next night. She's like, I just really want to thank Alexa Bliss, and I believe that Ronda Rousey, the person, means what she's saying, but it's not something I want to hear the character say.
No, I don't either. I agree with you.
That's something she's got to.
The smiling's got to stop. The smiling's got to stop. That part of your character was fine going into WrestleMania, but by this point now, it's time for you to be the killer. We need the killer. We need the Joan Jett theme Ronda, not, oh, can't believe I'm still here, Ronda.
Yes.
No, we don't need that. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Keep it with
Maybe
commercial.
Sick of that because they think it's fake. Because they know, I mean, if you hear all rights, man, she's not a pleasant woman. She's not like a nice person. Like a good person who's going to smile and hug fans and shit. You know what I mean?
Well, she better start because that's what WWE superstars do. They do a lot of hugging.
But you understand what I'm saying, though, man. That's not really who she is. She's kind of like a petulant brat, you know? And like
her husband seems likable.
But no, not really. But the thing is, like,
I think she's got a good heel run in there down the road.
Oh, she definitely does. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I just think that, you know, well, I'm saying what has not impressed me about her is, you know, Ronda Rousey was Goldberg in UFC. You know what I mean? Until she was no longer Goldberg.
Yeah.
And I don't think as a wrestler she's a really good Goldberg. You know what I mean? Like, really, I don't think she is. You know, and she needs to learn how to do her Goldberg. You know, I believe that. But anyway, so that tag match. Let's go to that tag match because I know you got to go to bed and stuff because of your time zone.
Scott spends most of his nights out carousing.
Yeah, I'm out. Yes, there's too much tomfoolery going on here. The tag was awesome. Rapscallion. The tag was awesome, and let me tell you something. I've been lately using, speaking of old terms, but this is a 1995 term. I feel Dolph and Drew McIntyre are the current dudes with attitudes because Dolph is channeling 95 Shawn, and there's no doubt that Drew is channeling Diesel. All the way down to the end of that match when he's got Dolph draped over his shoulder and carries him off like his. That had Shawn Diesel all over it. Do you get that feeling, Will, from them?
Dude, no, I don't compare them to them because I'm not really a Dolph guy, you know?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like, I've always looked at him as kind of like a Kurt Hennig cosplayer, you know? I'm not even trying to, like, it sounds like an insult, and I guess it is, but it's just like, I thought Dolph's best work was when he was like Vicky Guerrero's boy toy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a fan of his wrestling and his like over exaggerated selling. Like I've just never had this. Scott, we've done action shows together where you know this.
Many.
You know, it's like I'm not saying that to be like contrarian. It's truly how I feel. And dude, I am not like Ambrose guy. I just told y'all, man, I can't stand them as singles competitors, you know, because they had such bad runs after the Shield broke up. But man, that match was freaking amazing live. You know what it reminded me of? Because I had zero expectations. I've always loved Drew. Drew in the top 100 on the WWE Greatest Wrestler Ever deal last year. Always thought Drew was underrated. Always thought Drew got a bad bum rap because of what? He should have been higher up. Having said all that, dude, they tore it up. Mm-hmm. All right, they tore it up. I was there live in 2007 at the Royal Rumble when the Eminem and the Hardys came out, and that wasn't even scheduled on the show. And went, close to 15, 20 minutes in the opener of Royal Rumble 2007 and had a Match of the Year candidate. Yep. Not saying the Match of the Year. I mean, it was clearly the second best match on the show behind Cena Umaga. But I expected nothing from that tag match. And I got this match. And Scott, you watched as much Southern wrestling as I have. Nate, I know, like you said, you cut your teeth on it. Southern formula tag wrestling where you cut off that ring and you tease them hot tags and you wait and you build is the easiest freaking way to book a tag match. You don't need to do crazy moves. You don't have to do shit. In fact, I even turned to my buddy and I said, this might be the slowest that I have ever seen Seth, Dean, or Ziggler work. And you know what? It works. Because when they do a big move, it means something. When they do a big hot tag, it means because they're letting it sink in. They're letting each move build instead of trying to do 30 moves in 2 minutes. Instead of trying to do 15 dives. Nah, when we dive, it's going to feel like the end of the world. And they built it and built that hot tag, boom, and then the hot finish with the false finishes and then who's going to win and that excellent finish. That finish was so awesome with that kick to the face, and he just lands on bam, and thought, my God, they did it to me again. They took a tag that I absolutely did not give a shit about and gave me a Match of the Year contender. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I don't even like 3 of the 4 guys in the match. And I had to give them props, man. Same thing with Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, who we didn't talk about. I absolutely expected zero things from those 2 guys because I don't give a shit about Randy Orton. He is long past his expiration date in my mind. And Jeff Hart's like, I'm done with him too, man. And they put on a crazy Hell in the Cell, coming up with new spots when you thought there weren't any more new spots in a Hell in a Cell, and put on a hell of an opener. Mm-hmm. And I don't care about those guys.
Right.
But man, they kind of rammed it in that, hey, this show is going to be hot. Up until that horrible finish, this show is going to be hot. And that's how I feel, man. What did you think of that, Nate?
I enjoyed it, and I'm not the biggest Ziggler fan. I've never been a fan of Drew McIntyre until he went to Impact, ironically enough, because I think that's where he kind of...
Right, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that's where he kind of found himself. He kind of found his voice as a character.
And he found himself. It wasn't in 3MB. It wasn't as Vinnie Mac's illegitimate Irish son or whatever the hell he was. It was working all those C and D shows. Like, what are those Saturday shows and that they like Main Event and what was the other one?
Well, there used to be Velocity.
Velocity. Not your Main Event, Scott. You're legit. I'm talking about that. Like that Saturday Morning Slam. Like when he was wrestling on those shows, he was ripping it up. Like, holy shit, when did Drew McIntyre become such a great wrestler? When he got to work these 10, 12, 14-minute matches that nobody was watching, Nate. That's when he became hot. Not when he was on the main roster. Or when he was, like, being featured on the main TV. But, yeah. But so if you saw him in Impact, it was after he'd been doing that.
Yeah, and I think that him and Matt Hardy had a pretty good little run, and I think anybody, except for Bray Wyatt, working with Matt Hardy, it's going to bring the best out of you.
Man, he's absolutely the worst.
But no, I was impressed, man. I thought that was a really strong match. When you talk about Hardy and Orton, I think this is the match more than a match that Jeff Hardy came back for. You could say what you want about the Hardy reunion. It was cool while it lasted. They completely dropped the ball on the Woken Matt character. But this Hell in a Cell match, I think that's what Jeff Hardy came back for. And, as somebody that's been a fan of Jeff Hardy his whole career and seen the ups and downs and a lot of the self-inflicted wounds that this dude has caused to himself, it was cool to see him kind of still be here you know, and right. the Jeff Hardy story could have had a lot of endings, but to see him kind of reach this point and have a really hot match with Randy Orton, I was pleasantly surprised by it.
What'd you think of it, Scott?
I think that Seth is going to try and get as much out of where he is right now before this kind of ride falls, because I think that I agree with you, Will. I think he's kind of on a plateau right now, that he's rising, but I think that is there a glass ceiling for him? Time will tell.
When I say ceiling, I think it's a ceiling, not because the company I think would push him again to the title. I don't think like the fans would take him as the world champ. I really don't, man. I don't have faith in his.
I think if he pinned Roman, though, I think a significant portion of the audience would be behind that, at least for the short term.
Oh, you mean like former Shield members, but like without all that? Like, because do you agree with me that he was a horrible heel?
I think he was a bad heel. I also think it was a lot of bad writing. Like the Triple H lackey stuff never really worked for me. You know, giving him that it didn't work for me. I think I
didn't like that either, actually.
They botched the Sting feud to a certain extent. You know, granted the match itself was decent until the ending, but I thought they wasted a lot of stuff with that Sting feud. So it's like it just felt like they didn't know what to do with Seth Rollins. Like you're saying, Will, they had a lot of faith in the guy, and they're like, we got a hot commodity here, so let's put the rocket to him. But I don't think they knew where to direct the rocket, and so they just shot him up, and it didn't click. It didn't.
And what he is now, the babyface, Nate.
Yeah.
So.
And then when he came back, I thought he had some momentum behind him, but they kind of squandered that too. And it wasn't until they reunited him with Roman that he kind of found some solid ground.
Yeah. He's a great tag wrestler because he can do all those spots that he's so great at. You know what I mean?
Even the team with Jason Jordan was fun while it lasted.
All right, we end the show. You're bringing up your illegal. That's it. It's time for us to move on.
We could talk about Leo Rush, my 23-year-old son Leo Rush, but I know you need to get to bed, Scotty.
Are you old? Hey, now me and Scotty are old enough to have 23-year-old sons. Are you old enough to have a 23-year-old son, Nate?
I know I look deceptively young, but I am amongst your age bracket.
All right.
He knows who Dutch Mantel is. That's all that matters.
Right on.
Anyway, always a pleasure.
I'm old enough to have watched ECW Hardcore TV when it was actually airing on television.
Yes,
so that should give you a clue as to my age.
That works out. That works out.
Hey, you know how old I am? Old enough to watch Gordon Soley doing Georgia Championship Wrestling when I only had 13 channels on my TV.
Back when it was okay to have an ashtray on camera.
Yes.
Shit. As my dad was puffing like pipe smoke and cigar smoke over our house with his ashtray.
Back when people could carouse.
Yes.
And
there was tomfoolery going on in the hen house.
Lots of gumption.
Y'all are talking a bunch of poppycock right now. That's what I'm saying.
This has been a blast. Will, always a pleasure. I'm glad you had a lot of fun. I'm going to talk next week because aren't you going to be with us? You're going to be with us on the tournament, right? For
I'm going to win that tournament.
Episode 500. It would be an honor and a privilege. Good.
Hey, I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. I have no shot of winning that shit. I'm just being honest.
I'll try and mangle the questions for you. Anyway.
Yeah, I have no shot.
Right.
Like the chances of Will winning, do not put your bets on me winning. This shit ain't going to happen.
Anyway, check out this episode of WrestleNomics with our man Brandon Howard and Mookie, and listen more of Will's Mexican wrestling journey. And it was great to have you on tonight, Will, and we'll have you back on.
I love talking to both of you guys, man. I'm going to figure out a way to talk on this show in another round, man.
We'll definitely do it. We'll definitely do it. We'll definitely do it.
Yep.
Right.
Will or Nate, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Steve will return. We'll see what's going on in the world of wrestling around the world and back again, and then we suspended it for a week. For one show, but we will be back with our New Japan Classic match pick. I will put the 2 matches up on our Facebook page. And, again, 2 matches from the 90s. One involving two little guys, one involving two big guys. All of them Hall of Famers in my eyes.
Full disclosure, Steve, what happened? Because I think we need to be honest with the audience,
Sure.
Scotty.
All right.
We started the show. We went back to the locker room at halftime, and Steve said, "I'm pulling Levante Davis," and decided not to come back. So hopefully, we can convince Steve to put his jersey back on next time. But yes, we miss Brother Willie.
We miss Brother Willie. He'll be back.
I'm so sad, man. Like, Nate, you're the only one of the three that I have never met in person.
We're gonna try and get Nate to MetLife, which means Will, you got to come to MetLife.
Either MetLife or Mexico City.
What's MetLife?
MetLife Stadium, where WrestleMania is going to be this year. Where it was in 2013.
No, I can't do WrestleMania 2019. I'm all in on WrestleMania 2020. Not 2019, but 2020 is locked in. Because I have my kids around that time, man. So
okay. Do we even know where 2020 is going to be?
2020. Shit, I don't know, man.
Maybe
probably
it's in Vancouver.
Saudi Arabia,
Maybe it'll be the Alamo Dome, and then we'll just sleep on your floor.
If it's Vancouver, I'm going to Canada. I love my Canadian friends, man. We're doing Vancouver.
That's funny. All right, for Brother Will, for Brother Nate, I'm Brother Scott. You've been in the Iron Man main event, and see you in 2 weeks.
Adios.